One of the biggest problems in a business journey is scaling and growing. And today's Boastly podcast episode is all about scaling sustainably. That's hard for me to say. I've been practicing that 5 times. Scaling sustainably. We have got probably, I think, our very first ever New Zealand host. I may have got that wrong. We may have had somebody on before, but this one is going to live out in time. So this is such a good episode. Jon Lawry is the founder of Urban Butler. He's also part of the directors of the Astra, which is based in Australasia. He is in New Zealand. He was in Auckland. We did some time travel magic here. I spoke late on a Wednesday evening, which was very early his Thursday. Really interesting podcast. And I feel like anybody who's scaled their business, whether it's scaling from like 1 to 10 or gone from 10 to 20, or from him where he went from 30 to 80, you'll be able to sort of relate to the struggles that he had. First and foremost, Jon, thank you very much for being part of the podcast. Can you just please give a little bit of background about yourself, how you came to creating and founding Urban Butler, and then just let us know a little bit more about yourself and where you are in the world, please.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Mark. Hey, yes, so the Urban Butler was born, so to speak, in 2016. I was living in Australia, moving to New Zealand, and took a few months off to travel in Europe. And the thing that stood out to us, we were probably staying 80% Airbnb type properties and 20% hotels. And the thing that really stuck out was the additional level of guest experience that we were receiving, at those Airbnbs in Europe. And one night in particular really stands out. We were checking in around 10 p.m. Place in Barcelona, and the host came to meet us there, showed us through the apartment, and lovely apartment right in the middle of town. And on his way out, he just sort of said, "Look, here's Lonely Planet's list of recommendations, and here's ours. This is where you get the best aperitivo. This is where you get the best tapas. This is where you get the best coffee. Make sure you go here, etc., etc. Please contact us if you've got any questions or anything." And at 10 p.m. in Spain, that's dinner time. So my partner and I at the time, she said, "Where should we go for dinner?" And I said, "Well, clearly we're going to go to that tapas place downstairs that he's just recommended." And that was really the sort of start of that, I guess, live like a local or whatever you want to call it, that sort of that personal touch that I think it really resonates in what we do, and is a really a great add-on for guest experience.
So from 2017, end of 2017, moving into 2018, 2019, what was the growth and the trajectory like?
Yeah, so we started off with just a couple of apartments, my own one and one and a friend's. And just from there, we started doing some advertising and beating the streets in terms of meeting as many real estate agents and referral type partners that we could. And by the end of 2019, we had around 65 properties.
Wow. And then from 2019, moving now into 2023, how does the business look? Obviously, we've gone through so many things, lockdowns, shutdowns, COVID, etc. How from those 2019 to 2023, first question is, how many properties are you on now? And second question, which you can elaborate on as much as you like how have you sort of changed and pivoted the business through what has been like the biggest sort of lockdown, shutdown that Australasia has probably ever seen?
Yeah, that's right. Look, we currently have 50 properties, but it's a very different looking portfolio. So beginning of 2020, when everything started to shut down, we did lose a lot of properties, a lot of sort of mum and dad investors that couldn't afford the cash flow fluctuations and the uncertainty. So a lot of those ended up getting long-term tenants in or selling their properties. The reality of it is, I think that at the end of 2019, early 2020, we had scaled far too quickly, and in a hindsight, a weird kind of way, COVID was a really good reset for us. During the early part of COVID, something that we hadn't had to do before was, market the properties per se. Putting them on Airbnb and the other channels did all that for us. And all we needed to do was, advertise to new owners and bring the properties in. And that was a real sort of wake up call for us. Our previous website was a very simple, off the shelf type website that was targeting owners basically. And it talked about all the services that we provided for as a short-term rental professional management host. And that was, yes. So like I said, that was the sort of trigger point where we decided, well, we really need to have a booking site as well. And we need to be advertising. We need to be advertising to new and existing guests. And that's kind of where we got to. So we invested heavily during that first part of COVID. We didn't quite realize how long it was going to go on for, as nobody did at the time. But that was an absolute game changer for us. And the website is predominantly now a booking channel. There is a page for hosts or owners, which describes all of our services, etc. But the idea being that if you're an owner and you look at the Urban Butler website, you can see how well presented the properties are and what that sort of looks like from the front end, and that's kind of it sort of sells itself. And
so what powers the business? Like what's the tech stack that you have? Property management software, like dynamic pricing. What are you using behind the scenes that help powers the Urban Butler?
Yeah, so we have Guesty, which is the engine room of the business. So as you know, property management and channel management software. We use Beyond Pricing for our dynamic pricing tool. We use Aperto for our guest app, guest experience app. And so all of that obviously links together with Guesty. So it's quite a seamless operation. We use noise monitors in the apartments. What else do we use? Yeah, we obviously, all the different OTAs and a few boutique ones as well that we've built APIs to connect to, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's the main tech stack. Yeah.
And what does the team look like the team makeup? Obviously there's yourself. Like how many members of staff are running like the operations and the day-to-day and the marketing now with Urban Butler, and how has that changed from 2019? Because it sounds like a lot has happened within the business structurally since then.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, casting back to 2019 when we scaled too quickly, we only had 3 staff members then, 65 properties, and then we lost a staff member just before Christmas going into the summer busy period. And so that was a testing time, and we learned a lot around that. So there are 5 full-time staff members now, including myself. So myself, we have an operations manager who is very experienced. She's come from another large short-term rental company here in New Zealand, and underneath her are 3 other staff members. One is a guest experience manager, one is an owner experience manager, and the other one is a marketing specialist. So that's kind of, we've kind of siloed the business into those main areas that we want to concentrate on.
Fantastic. And what would you say over the last sort of 3 years has been your biggest like sort of learning lesson, so to speak? Like what's that one thing that you wish you had known like beforehand, and what have you gathered from that and taken on the other side?
Yeah, I really think it is that sort of growing sustainably, scaling sustainably. It's, when you've got 10 or 20 properties is a very different prospect to when you've got 50 plus properties. And in order to manage that expectation of the owners, manage the guest experience, keep the reviews up, all that stuff, you really need to be, what do we say? We're sort of planning to grow. So we're growing before we get to that stage. So making sure that we've got the staff in place and all of the requirements before we get to that point.
Scaling sustainably. I like that. That's That's a nice saying. Scaling sustainably. So it's so easy when you're growing as well. When you feel like you're on that roller coaster, and when you're going, it's so easy just to keep saying yes to every opportunity that comes your way. And I feel like over time, the trick is to say no. Saying no is better than a yes, because it can open up a really good yes sometimes. And thank you for doing this. Fast approaching 600 episodes now of the podcast. So thank you for being part of that. And yeah, fantastic. And thank you everybody for tuning in. As always, if this is the first time that you are listening or watching this podcast, please make sure you stick around, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share it with a host that you know that would maybe enjoy this interview. And with that being said, we'll be back in a couple of days' time with our next podcast. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Take care, everybody.
Cheers.
Having a blast, gonna get it on the Bruce Lee podcast. Bruce Lee like Bruce Lee, cause it's so hard and the T is loose leaf. Making up those rhymes, don't write it, just do it loosely.